deployed a trio of nuclear-capable B-2 stealth bombers to Guam. A senior general says it is sending a signal to everyone amid regional tensions involving North Korea and China.
Show of force, the Pentagon deployed 3 nuclear-capable B-2 stealth bombers along with 200 airmen to Guam overnight, closer to the Korean peninsula. Defense officials said the deployment had been scheduled for months.
I think when we move bombers across the globe, we send a signal to everyone.
The B-2 is just one component of the nuclear triad slated for upgrade. The U.S. nuclear arsenal has not been modernized in decades. Its missiles date back to the 1970s. This week, details of the Pentagon's long-awaited nuclear posture review leaked to the public and revealed the Trump administration wants more flexibility to respond with nuclear weapons to an attack. The U.S. wants to develop a new low-yield tactical version of the Trident missile launched from submarines. John Wolfstall, an arms control expert who worked for President Obama, has read the plan and is alarmed.
I think the document really goes off the rails by calling for the development of not one but 2 new types of nuclear weapons that would be deployed both on submarines and on surface ships. It talks about wanting to increase the role of nuclear weapons, that the United States might use them not in fewer situations but in more situations.
The idea is to make Russia think twice about using new land-based cruise missiles in Eastern Europe. The U.S. has accused Russia of violating the 1987 Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. Matthew Kronig is the author of the upcoming book, The Logic of American Nuclear Strategy. He says Russia is forcing the U.S.'s hand.
Their plan is to use a number of small nuclear weapons early in the conflict to try to frighten us into backing down. And right now we don't have a good response to that.
This is the first nuclear posture review in 8 years. Past administrations all agree the nuclear triad needs to be modernized. What has experts concerned is that developing new tactical nukes is an expensive way to bargain with the Russians.
The U.S. Pacific Air Forces announced on Wednesday that 200 personnel along with the 3 aircraft have deployed to Andersen Air Force Base. The base is a strategic point in the Asia-Pacific region. It is already home to a fleet of B-1 bombers that have taken part in joint exercises on the Korean peninsula. Those drills follow the latest round of North Korea's ballistic missile tests. It is unclear how long the B-2 bombers will be stationed in Guam. The U.S. Defense Department says their deployment is part of an ongoing rotation.
Members of the Council reiterated that DPRK and all other member states should comprehensively and strictly implement all relevant resolutions of the Security Council.
The Council's president read out a statement after members held a closed-door meeting on Wednesday. The Security Council has been divided between countries who want to increase pressure on the North and those like China and Russia, which typically call for dialogue.
This morning, though, the leaders of South Korea and China have positively assessed the recent uptick in inter-Korean relations. Speaking over the phone on Thursday, Chinese President Xi Jinping welcomed the progress and backed efforts by the 2 Koreas to improve their ties. Our Blue House correspondent Hwang Ho-jun starts us off.
President Moon Jae-in and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping have highly evaluated the thawing relations between the 2 Koreas as well as between Seoul and Beijing. According to a written statement released by the top office following their telephone talks on Thursday, President Moon explained in detail to President Xi the results of the recent high-level inter-Korean talks and expressed his gratitude for Beijing's support. President Xi welcomed the improvement in Seoul-Pyongyang relations and said he actively supports President Moon and the efforts of his administration. President Xi also stressed any improvement in the relationship between Seoul and Pyongyang must coincide with the process of denuclearization. The 2 leaders also agreed to continue their joint efforts in resolving the North Korean nuclear issue peacefully and pledged to reinforce strategic communication and cooperation, so the recent push for dialogue will go beyond North Korea's participation in the Winter Olympics and ultimately result in the establishment of peace on the peninsula. Regarding Seoul's relationship with Beijing, the 2 leaders said both Korean and Chinese people have been able to feel the boosted bilateral exchanges and collaboration between the 2 countries since President Moon's state visit to China, calling it a huge success. President Moon invited President Xi to the closing ceremony of the Pyeongchang Games, as Beijing is set to host the next Winter Olympic Games in 2022. While the Chinese president didn't give any definitive answer, he pledged to closely work together with Korea to ensure a successful transition. Thursday's phone call was the second phone conversation between the two leaders since President Moon took office in May, and the first since the South Korean leader made a state visit to China last month. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
She spoke by phone with President Moon Jae-in about this week's ministerial meeting between South and North Korea. Moon reportedly thanked Xi for his support of the talks. The Chinese president said he backs Moon's stance that improving inter-Korean ties goes hand in hand with efforts to denuclearize the peninsula. The leaders agreed inter-Korean dialogue should continue beyond the North's participation in the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. They said they hope talks would lead to a peaceful resolution of the nuclear issue and the establishment of permanent peace on the Korean peninsula. They also agreed to strengthen strategic dialogue and cooperation between their countries. Moon asked Xi to attend the closing ceremony at the Pyeongchang Olympics as the leader of the nation hosting the next Winter Games. Xi said China will cooperate closely with South Korea to ensure a smooth transition from Pyeongchang to the next Games.
We begin with more reaction to the talks between North and South Korea earlier this week. U.S. President Donald Trump has indicated he's open to talks with Pyongyang under the right circumstances. Trump and South Korea's President Moon Jae-in spoke over the phone about the inter-Korean talks. A White House statement says the two leaders emphasized the importance of keeping up maximum pressure against the North. Trump also had this to say at a cabinet meeting.
Who knows where it leads? Hopefully it'll lead to success for the world, not just for our country, but for the world. And we'll be seeing over the next number of weeks and months what happens. This meeting. Actually, it was
South Korea's presidential office reported that Trump said there won't be any military action on the issue as long as talks are happening. At Tuesday's talks, North Korea said it would attend the Olympics in Pyeongchang next month. The two countries also agreed to hold military talks to ease tensions on the Korean peninsula. But North Korean delegates reportedly bristled when the South raised the idea of dialogue on denuclearization. The North delegation made it clear disarmament talks are not on the table. Tuesday's talks follow months of heightened tensions over Pyongyang's ongoing development of nuclear and missile programs.
South Korean President Moon Jae-in and U.S. President Donald Trump view the latest inter-Korean dialogue as one that could naturally lead to talks between the United States and North Korea for the denuclearization of the Korean peninsula after the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics next month. The Blue House released a statement saying the agreement came during a phone conversation between the two leaders a day after the two Koreas rare face-to-face at the border town of Panmunjom on Tuesday. President Moon told his U.S. counterpart that the talks had gone well and made note of Mr. Trump's contribution.
남북 대화 성사에 대한 트럼프 대통령의 공은 매우 크다고 생각합니다. 이제 미국이 주도했던 제재와 압박 거의 효과일 수도 있습니다.
The two leaders underscored the importance of continuing the maximum pressure campaign against North Korea, but Seoul's top office also added that the U.S. leader gave his word that there would be no military action while South and North Korea talks were going on.
I just spoke to President Moon. He's very thankful for what we've done. They're having talks with North Korea. We'll see how that happens.
President Trump expressed his openness to holding talks between the U.S. and North Korea at the appropriate time under the right circumstances.
Who knows where it leads? Hopefully it'll lead to success for the world, not just for our country, but for the world. And we'll be seeing over the next number of weeks and months what happens.
During the half-an-hour phone conversation, the U.S. leader also told the South Korean president that Vice President Mike Pence would lead the U.S. presidential delegation to the Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games, set to kick off on February 9th.